when we talk about the right to participation, we think straight away about the United Nations Convention on Children's Rights, and the participation is the Article 12.
So thank you so much once again joining us, ma'am, from Berlin. It's a wonderful possibility for us to have people like you. We always invite people from different expertise and domains, so that a data of body can be shared by them, different expertise can be analyzed, and sort of put forward for public to analyze how they can be a better instrumental possibilities in order to enhance the very possible dimensions of our society. RISO is a platform. We are trying to step through the noise to sort of arrive at new and valid conclusions, which may be sort of sociological conclusions, to make some better possibilities for our society in order to enhance and make development more specific. Thanks a lot once again, ma'am, joining us from Berlin. I would like to move on to my first question, which is certainly an important question. It says children rights to participation in ethical pedagogy. And the topic, the discussion I'm talking about, the topic, it says like understanding participation rights. I'm just going to read out that. How would you define children's rights to participation in the context of education, and why it is considered a formulated aspect of ethical pedagogy? And with this question, I would also request you, please give us an introduction of yourself. That's going to be a kind of, it's going to be a blessing for us to know you.
Of course, thank you so much. My name is Marta Skrzypczak. I am a children's rights expert. I have a master's degree in childhood studies and children's rights, and also I have a bachelor degree in early childhood education. And I am a freelance coaching consultant in the topic of participation and enabling young people's children's voices to be heard, but I also work in children and youth participation office in one of the districts in Berlin, Germany. And maybe I will just go straight to the first question. Thank you so much. I'm very excited to be here and talk about participation and the right to participation. So when we talk about the right to participation, we think straight away about the United Nations Convention on Children's Rights. And the participation is the Article 12. That's what everybody thinks when we talk about this right. But actually, it is a group of rights, such as right to information, right to assembly, right to non-discrimination. All those rights are interconnected and they come together. And actually, the participation rights are like a glue that holds all the other rights together. Without participation, the other rights cannot be respected, so to speak. And what I also want to say that the Article 12 and the right to participation of children's rights is not the beginning or the end of that right. It evolves with time, like all the other rights do. It changes, and this right was also very much under critique from some social scientists, for example, from Cordero As, who wrote an article in 2015 about how the right to participation is actually yet again written by adults and being set by adults without having children and youth to be included in development of this right. So this is something that might be a tip for the future development of rights. This is something that children and youth need to be included in development of all the other rights in the future. And when we're talking about the right to participation and participation itself, we think about the agency. So seeing children as social actors and seeing children as capable to make own decisions, to be able to see consequences of those decisions, and to also going further, to be able to be involved in decision-making processes about all the aspects of life that involves them. And that means basically all the aspects of life that includes also us adults. And when it comes to participation in education, it also means including children in the process of learning and self-directed learning. And when I saw that question, I had to think straight away about Janusz Korczak and John Dewey, the two people who were pioneers and experimented with educational approaches, and also in case of Korczak, who very much influenced development of the UN Convention on Children's Rights. Because they saw education as a platform for children and young people to learn differently, not in this conventional forms of children learning the curriculum, but to evolve and develop and be the part of the curriculum, but also be the part of development of the curriculum. And they saw children as active contributors, also in decision making, not just passive recipients of the education. And I think what a lot of people can agree on that, and there is a lot of studies about that showing that social participation in education enhances engagement, enhances critical thinking, but it also has a big influence on holistic development of children, on development of self-esteem, confidence, resilience, social skills. There are so many skills that come with being able to participate and exercise own agency and autonomy. I cannot imagine the future of education without this rights-based approach, basically. Yes, that would be the answer, I think, to context of participation within the education.
Mm-hmm.
I think, yes. I hope I answered your question with that. I think what we also wanted to talk about is the fundamental aspects of this ethical pedagogy. Is that right?
Thanks a lot for responding, and you mentioned a few words very important, that UN Convention and landmark their instrumentalities, and at the same time children being social actors, not just passive recipients, but at the same time putting their hands and indulging into social possibilities and programs and networks practically in order to enhance their overall holistic personality, holistic possibilities in their development. It may be education, it may be rights, right to education, right to gathering, right to upliftment and development, things like that. Should have understood by your words such a important narrative you put forward. Thanks a lot for that. Would like to move on to my second question. Very important question. Says, ma'am, challenges in the implementation. What are source of the practical challenges educators face when trying to incorporate children's voices and participation in the classroom? Very important question, ma'am.
Yeah, thank you. So I will start with the biggest barrier, which is the systemic barrier. And a lot of places in the world, there is a very rigid curriculum, very strict curriculum that needs to be taught by teachers, and who are also being controlled to see whether or not they deliver the curriculum in the way that it's expected. And there are large class sizes, and a lot of the times, and there is a very much performance-based assessments also in early childhood, but also later on in a school, primary and secondary school education, which leaves the teachers with a little room to include participation approaches in the classroom. I actually, just to say example from real life, I had recently a consultation with a teacher of a fifth grade in the US, and she told me she needs to deliver the curriculum from A to Z. They have one recess per day in that school that's 20 minutes long, and there is somebody who comes in every week and checks whether or not the curriculum is delivered the way it should be, to make sure that the students can perform in the tests. So it's very much rigid, and this poses a great challenge to teachers to include those participative methods within the classrooms. It really, it's a huge barrier for them. The other is also the attitude of teachers, because there are some teachers who are really focusing on have scared of losing the authority and control and are reproducing those conservative roles within the classrooms and are scared to try new things out. But there might also be at the same time teachers or educators who have to have a deep training about children's rights or about different methods that they can use in the classroom. And they also hold maybe traditional views of how the teaching should be.
Thanks a lot once again, ma'am, responding to that important question that rigid curriculum is not something very much compatible and kind of tool which should be used for the enhancement of children's growth. And it's important to think out of the box. That's what I figure out, that your words very important, very good narrative. Now I would like to move on to my third question. Important question says balancing guidance and freedom. This is like, how can educators strike a balance between providing guidance and allowing children the freedom to make meaningful contributions to their learning processes?
So I really, as a first thing, I have to think about the theory of zone of proximal development by Vygotsky, ZPD, as a strategy to for educators to provide scaffolding that ensures that children gain competence without being too directed in their learning, so to speak. So that would be first thought that I have about this question. I think it's very important to have the children and young people to be able to think for themselves and direct their learning a little bit. What I really love is the inquiry-based learning. So it's a concept in which educators pose questions and engage in brainstorming and sustained shared thinking as a method, and allow students to explore different topics, allow them for making mistakes as a process of learning. And I think what also could bring the balance is hands-on learning, so trying different things rather than just theoretical learning, a lot of outings, a lot of outdoor excursions, and or planning maybe class projects together, deciding on different methods to deepen the knowledge, such as making different types of projects possible within the classroom. What also is a hugely important part is creating a space for children and youth to participate, to be able to take part in decision making. And this space could be like student councils, student forums, where children have a designated time during the school week, maybe one school hour or two, where they meet and discuss different issues and give the suggestions and recommendations on how things should be resolved. And what's important to remember is that there is this pseudo participation. I'm doing this, but actually it is pseudo participation. It's when children are given the platform to talk about opinions and express their opinions, but they are not really listened to. And they are not giving any feedback. So giving children the feedback after such session is one of the most important parts to make sure that the participation is really taking place. But I would say also, when it comes to balancing, I have recommendations such as incorporating complaining mechanism within the classroom and school, so that the children and youth can give complaints, maybe even work on finding solutions. And the other important tip would be creating rules with students. that would bring it more into balance and making sure that children's voices are heard, and that the rules that are created are not only by adults but by children themselves.
Yeah, thanks a lot for responding. That's an important question. Balancing guidance and freedom, and how important it is while delivering quality education to children and for their enhancement and development. Now, would like to move on to my fourth question, ma'am. Very important question. Global perspectives, talking about and how do cultural and socio-economic factors influence the implementation of children's participation rights in different educational systems globally? Give your comment, ma'am, please.
Yes, it's an important question. I really had to think quite long about that, because we think that socioeconomic factors, as a first thought, that is the most difficult factors. But I don't think it is, because we have many examples around the world of people who fight for participation, young people. Like Malala Yousafzai, who fought for the right to education in the global south, what is considered to be global south. So I think that there are a lot of places who have socioeconomic struggles but manage to exercise own agency and participation. And what I think sometimes it comes down to as well is the differences in the societies, whether or not there is an emphasis on group harmony or individual choice. And what I also had to think about is the example of the USA, which is considered to be the highly developed country in the world, but yet is the only country who did not ratify the Convention on the Rights of the Child. And I think that children in the USA have a little to say when it comes to education and are subjected to very rigid curriculum and learning, because there is a huge emphasis on parental rights rather than the rights of the child. And I think that in a lot of places around the world, those things are changing, that the rights of the child, the convention, it's been around, right, since 1989. So there are a lot of changes around the world, and I'm optimistic about the changes. What I see is a lot of emphasis on child-led learning and child-led play. And I don't think it has something to do with socioeconomic background. I think it has a lot to do with the attitude of adults and also of children being able now to exercise their own agency. And I think there is a transformation that is taking place, and I'm just hoping that it will continue on its path for the future. And I also think that the participation frameworks, such as the Laura Landi model of participation that's known around the world and that influenced the European Union strategy on children's rights, I think that those frameworks, they can be adapted to any environment, any local needs, local context, and I'm confident that globally participation can take place in all the societies. Yeah.
Thanks a lot for responding. Very important question, ma'am. Global perspectives and different narratives and perceptions you put forward for our audience. I'm sure they're going to be listening and watching your perceptions in a kind of detailed narrative you put forward. It's going to be instrumental. It's going to be a good database for us to peep into and to look at. We would like to move on to my third question. Important question again. Wrap-up question also, ma'am, says, future of the pedagogy. What steps can policymakers, educators, and communities take to ensure that children's rights to participation are upheld in future educational frameworks? Please comment.
I think that there needs to be policy reforms so that the participation in children's rights needs to be embedded in national curricula and standards, or even maybe national legislation. That's the movement right now in Germany, trying to put children's rights into the constitution. That would be the goal. Then we have the training. So there is a need for more professional development, professional training focused on children's rights and participation, but also practical methods and ethical teaching. And there is a need for more community engagement, so involving all stakeholders when it comes to decision making. So not only adults, but also or leaders, but also parents, children, seniors, people of all generations and across all the different paths that should be co-creating different developments, projects, rules, policies. And what I think is needed is more research on and evaluation on the participation in education. What I have in mind is more longitudinal studies on the effects of the self-directed participation learning within the school settings, and how the different methods bring which results. How the different methods bring different results that are comparable to the results that we want to achieve from education for our children and young people. I think what's important is also that schools are more democratic, that there are spaces where children learn about all citizenship and how to exercise own agency. I really believe that international collaboration could also bring a huge advancement in this area. I think there are already cool projects such as UNESCO schools, where there is a lot of exchange with students and teachers, and that could promote more participation in the education. And I think we cannot forget that education, even though oftentimes it's an institution, it is possible to change it. It's possible to adapt to the needs of students and update, develop, evolve into something better and more, something that children and young people will find more appealing and will have fun at learning.
Thanks a lot, ma'am, responding this important topic, future of the pedagogy. And once again, thank you so much, ma'am, joining us from Berlin. It's an important stuff and topic that we've covered today by you. And it's really important for us, like children's rights to participation and ethical pedagogy. And you've talked about understanding participation, children's freedom. You've talked about very important global perspectives and future of the pedagogy you've talked about. You mentioned good narratives and qualitative and quantitative details and different perceptions and strategies, how we can collectively come together in order to uplift this important section of our society, children and their rights, how to stand, how to make the education more prolific, more constructive and more creative for them. So such a wonderful discussion, ma'am. Thanks a lot once again joining this platform, RISO. As you're already aware that RISO is a platform for sort of enhancing and sort of making a good platform for academics in particular and research in general. So our base as a theme and our push area is to make and research database, which is quite open as a public library for people. They can, watch videos, these narratives, these podcasts, and draw some benefits, and also peep into that deep insight which is being shared during the podcast. So that's one of the concern, and making a good research database and data. Thanks a lot, ma'am, once again joining us from Berlin, ma'am.